This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
The time is 6:15. Here's the news edited by Anjana Dudangoda, read by Victor Raj. First, take a look at the headlines of the local news. The President calls for consensus of members of Parliament to implement 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Minister of Power and Energy says the government plans to utilize Eastern Province's natural resources for renewable energy integration. Train services on main line limited to single track. Further delays expected. Sri Lanka to introduce a special visa category for SAARC countries. Australian Federal Parliamentarian Crescenda Fernando called over at the Speaker. Foreign news, 41 migrants die in shipwreck off Italy. Sports news, Lanka qualifies to 400-meter boys hurdle final at Commonwealth Youth Games. Local news in detail. Making a special statement in Parliament today, President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the need to implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in a manner that suits the growth and the future of the nation. He emphasized that in order to achieve this, a consensus among all members of Parliament is needed through broad and open-minded discussions. The President pointing out that the opposition should deviate from the traditional opinion that the role of the opposition is to oppose every decision taken by the government, emphasized that the opposition view should be considered while making decisions. An effort should be made to promote a more balanced and cooperative political environment. The President emphasizing the importance of being reliable and responsible said that the development of the country depends on the concerted efforts for the fresh direction by encouraging the adaptation of this new approach. President Wickremesinghe urged all the MPs to avoid engaging in personal debates and instead focus on the future of the country. He called for sincere unity among parliamentarians to collaboratively make decisions that prioritize the country's long-term interests. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara says that the government plans to utilize the natural resources of the Eastern Province to develop offshore and onshore wind power, ground mounts solar for renewable energy integration and green hydrogen development. Wijesekara said he has held talks on energy sector development plans for the Eastern Province with the governor of the province, Sendil Tondaman, recently. In a tweet, the minister mentioned that the governor assured his fullest cooperation to develop the sector with the necessary approvals required and also the land identification. The Department of Railways said one of the two railway tracks on the main line has now been reopened for train services which were disrupted owing to the collision involving a container truck and the Fauzi office train near Merigama. The General Manager of Railways, M.J. Indipolage, stated that since 12 trains which were scheduled to operate following the office train which was involved in the collision have been parked on the tracks, they will be made to operate one by one on the single track. He added, however, the train operations on the main line will possibly experience further delays. Meanwhile, the traffic flow from Pasyala Junction towards Meerigama and the expressway entrance, which was also hindered as a result of the accident, has now been brought back to normal. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
Continuing with more local news, the Sectoral Oversight Committee on International Relations held discussions pertaining to the introduction of a special visa category for SAARC countries, including India, Bangladesh and Maldives. The following was taken into discussion at the Sectoral Oversight Committee on International Relations, which met in membership of Member of Parliament Namal Rajapaksa. There was a discussion on Sri Lanka's foreign policy on behalf of the SAARC countries, and the committee chair, the MP Rajapaksa, pointed out that it is important to prepare a special visa category for the SAARC countries like India, Bangladesh and Maldives in the fields of education and health. As a result, he said that the committee would propose to prepare a system of granting visa for these countries in a considerate manner. Australian federal parliamentarian Crescenda Fernando called over at the Speaker Mahindayapa Abeyewardena recently. MP Crescenda Fernando is recently of family of Sri Lankan origin. Two parliamentary systems were deeply reviewed at the discussion. Much attention was conferred towards the strengthening democracy. That ends local news.
Elevate your life with People's Bank Excelsior. A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
While addressing Parliament, the President emphasized a consensus among all Parliament members through comprehensive and open-minded deliberations. Meanwhile, President Wickremesinghe, who advocated a departure from the traditional view of the opposition, merely criticizing the government, urged a more inclusive approach that involved considering opposition viewpoints in decision-making, promoting a more balanced and collaborative political environment. In his special parliamentary address, he further emphasized the importance of the acting confidently and responsibly. The President also highlighted that the nation's development relies on the joint efforts of following a fresh direction, encouraging the adaptation of this new approach. Speaking further, the President said that there are three categories of prisoners: remand prisoners, those on death row, and those with other sentences, and the last two categories will be considered for presidential pardon. Moreover, the President highlighted that around 90% to 92% of the land occupied by the security forces and the police in 2009 has been gradually released. This includes 22,919 acres, consisting of 817 acres of state-owned and 22,101 acres of privately owned land, he said. During his address at the Parliament, the President also mentioned that the Office of the Missing Persons has initiated efforts to locate missing individuals. That ends Main News Story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Watch Life is brought to you by
CIB Janajaya Vasana. Unbelievable discounts and offers throughout August from CIB Janajaya Vasana. Come today itself.
Cabinet spokesman and Mass Media Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said the government will take all possible efforts to continuously supply electricity to the south and that the water for agricultural purposes will be released without any disruption to the poor family. Rather, to the power supply. The minister, speaking at the weekly cabinet media briefing held at the Government Information Department, said that this issue was discussed at the week's cabinet meeting and no government in the world has the ability to control the current situation, etc. natural disasters when there is bad weather and climate. That came to you on Watchlight.
CIB Janajaya Vasana. Unbelievable discounts and offers throughout August from CIB Janajaya Vasana. Come today itself.
Moving on to world news, let's take a look at the headlines. 41 migrants die in shipwreck off Italy. Rahul Gandhi rips into Indian Prime Minister Modi over Manipur violence. 9 bodies found after fire at France holiday home. World news in detail. The survivors told local media 41 migrants have died in a shipwreck off the Italian island of Lampedusa. A group of 4 people who survived the disasters told rescuers that they were on a boat that had set off from Sfax in Tunisia and sank on its way to Italy. The 4 survivors, originally from the Ivory Coast and Guinea, reached Lampedusa today. More than 1,800 people have lost their lives so far this year in the crossing from North Africa to Europe. In recent days, Italian patrol boats and charity groups have rescued another 2,000 people who have arrived on Lampedusa. Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi has accused Prime Minister Narendra Modi of murdering Mother India in violence hit Manipur state. They killed India in Manipur. Their politics killed India in Manipur, Mr. Gandhi said in Parliament amid uproar from the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. He was speaking during a no-confidence motion debate that the opposition have brought against Mr. Modi's government. A vote is due on the motion on Thursday after the debate ends. Mr. Modi's government won't lose the vote as the Bharatiya Janata Party and its allies have a majority in Parliament. 9 bodies have been found and 2 more people were feared dead after a fire at a holiday home hosting people with learning disabilities in France. Nearly 80 firefighters were sent to the blaze in La Farge after emergency services were alerted at 6:30 local time today. 17 people were evacuated from the building, while at least 1 person has been taken to hospital. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. 41 migrants die in shipwreck off Italy. Rahul Gandhi rips into Indian Prime Minister Modi over Manipur violence. 9 bodies found after fire at a France holiday home. That ends world news. Development News is brought to you by
Job opportunities from Deshakti Lanka in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, including company housemaid, salary 156,000 rupees, 23 to 57 years. Contact 037 7500 500.
Moving on to development news, the government is planning to set up a 210 megawatts wind power park project in Veeraville in Kilinochchi district with the technical assistance of the USAID. Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority Chairman Ranjit Sepala shared that the USAID is funding the environmental impact assessment for the proposed 210 megawatts wind power project under the Sri Lankan Energy Program. Based on the information from Global Wind Atlas, a pre-feasibility study says 210 megawatt of power generation would be possible in this region, with approximately 786.18 gigawatt of annual energy generation. That came to you on Development News.
Job opportunities for women from Deshakti Lanka in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Oman. Company housemaids, caretakers and home cooks in Saudi Arabia for ages 23 to 57 years. Salary starting from 156,000 rupees. Interviews are now on with foreign agents. You can now travel overseas free of charge. Branches Colombo, Kurunagala, Anuradhapura and Matara. Contact number 037 7500 500. Deshakti Lanka Foreign Development Agency.
Moving on to sports news, Asian Youth Athletic Championship 2023 bronze medalist and upcoming young Sri Lankan athlete Ayomal Akalanka of Ambagambua Madhya Mahavidyalu qualified for the 400-meter hurdle boys finals at the 7th Commonwealth Youth Games today. The Commonwealth Youth Games Athletic Championship is now underway in Trinidad and Tobago, and the final of the event is scheduled to be held tomorrow at the Hesley Crawford Stadium. The preliminary round of the respective event was held today, where Ayomal Akalanka, who participated in the first heat, managed to come first place, clocking 51.99 seconds. Akalanka also managed to record the best time in this competition, which consists of 2 preliminary rounds. That came to you on Sports News.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Prizes have been awarded to the winners who purchased the tickets of the Development Lottery Board. The chairman of the Development Lottery Board, Ajit Gunaratna Naragala, presented the checks for the prize money. 51 winners received the checks. The maximum prize money given was 60,811,004.0. The checks worth of 2 million rupees were issued to 19 winners. 28 winners received checks worth 1 million rupees each. The ceremony of handing over the winners was held today at the headquarters of the Development Lottery Board. That ends Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Up next, economic news. State Minister of Rural Road Development Sivanesh Chature Chandrakanthan said China has expressed interest in investing in Sri Lanka's northern and eastern provinces. But any development in strategic port district of Trincomalee has to be done in consensus with India, in line with the 13th Amendment of the island nation constitution. Sri Lanka's northern and eastern provinces are close to South Indian Tamil Nadu state, and India has continuously raised security concerns over China's increased activities in the both ethnic minority Tamil-led provinces, which has more cultural similarities to Tamil Nadu. Chandrakanthan, an elected legislator from the eastern district of the Batticaloa, said any development in Trincomalee port, oil tank farm and their surrounding area should happen with the consent of Delhi government. That came to you on Economic News. Finally, on to the weather report. The Meteorology Department says showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in eastern and Ur provinces and in Mullaitivu district during the evening or night. A few showers will occur in western and Sabaragamulla provinces and in the Galle, Mathura, Kandy and Nuwara districts. Mainly fair weather will prevail elsewhere over the island. To wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. The President calls for consensus among members of Parliament to implement 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Minister of Power and Energy says government plans to utilize eastern provinces' natural resources for renewable energy integration. Train services on main line limited to single track, further delays expected. Sri Lanka to introduce a special visa category for SAARC countries. Australian Federal Parliamentarian Cassandra Fernando called over at the Speaker. Foreign news, 41 migrants die in shipwreck off Italy. Sports news, Akalanka qualifies to 400-meter boys hurdles final at Commonwealth Youth Games. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka.